Hello, Matt. How you doing?
Hello, Luke. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Today I'm joined by Matt Wilkie from the INS Group, specifically to talk about voice. Matt, we've known each other for about two years now.
Yeah, 2 years. I'm trying to point to it, but I'm not. I'm not doing a very good job.
Yeah, no, it needs to be kind of.
Yeah,
It's always
yeah,
the opposite direction, isn't it?
yeah.
Um, but through meeting Matt and listening to his kind of journey of self development, and I was kind of at the inception of voice. We did the logo for it. Um, it's quite an inspiring story of looking inwardly and looking at who we are as people. So I'm not going to try and put words in your mouth at all. But Matt, could you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, the INS Group, and eventually Voice, please?
Yeah, my name's Matt. I'm from Portsmouth, born and bred. Been around the world with my career. Travelled to many countries. But yeah, keep getting pulled back to the hometown. And I think it might be to do with Portsmouth Football Club, which obviously is a big central point of the city. Um, Been in telecoms for 28 years now, coming up for, and yeah, it's been a big part of my life, my career. Been very fortunate to have worked consistently throughout those 28 years. A couple of little off points, but it's yeah, so it's a really fascinating industry. It's grown obviously from 1G all the way up to 5G, and there's all the transmission and electrical and structural, and it's quite an interesting industry. So something that you can be quite diverse in, and lots of different pathways. I set up my company in 2015, and so yeah, we'll be 8 years now. I would say, yeah, goodness me. So yeah, it's been good. So we currently have 18 staff, two offices, one in the Midlands, a main head office in Portsmouth, and that's pretty much where we're at the moment.
As the figurehead of a business that's in an industry such as telecoms, what kind of challenges have you found being the head of the company?
Well, I think take telecoms out of it. I think the biggest sort of comment I would make is, and it probably resonate with yourself as well. Being a business owner is easily one of the hardest journeys that you'll ever go on. There's so many moving parts. You have to try to, you know, you need to understand what you're going to go and do first and foremost. But I think a lot of people nowadays are so hell bent on trying to make money over actually having a passion and purpose behind what they do. It's it is a very difficult sort of journey that you go on, and look, it's great at the beginning because it's all exciting. You're setting up this business and you've got all these ideas and you're going to take over the world, and but it very rarely continues on that trajectory, sadly. So the first couple of years is always very positive. You're out there, you've got that energy, enthusiasm, but then when you start to hit those brick walls and those blockers, because you've become bigger, you're trying to, sort of entice bigger clients. You need to then become more compliant as part of that. So therefore, you need bigger systems and processes. You need funding, finance. All of a sudden, this is where your head starts to spin, and it's getting it to that dizzy height of turning it into sort of 7-figure business. That's where you really start to feel the pressure.
I always use the analogy, it's a little bit like when you start off, like a little rowing boat, and it's really easy to change course and
Yes.
even just go back if you want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
And then when you're of a bigger business and you're a few years in, suddenly it's like, yeah, you on this massive cruise ship or this massive container ship, and it's going in a direction, and you can alter the direction, but ultimately it's you need a lot of other people on board, and you need to have, obviously need a plan as well. So I
Yeah.
think I completely see where you're coming from with that. So um your journey of self awareness maybe is probably a good way to put it. Has involved certain things, like when we were chatting last year, you'd done the Peaks Challenge up in Scotland.
Yep,
That was right,
six.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was reach your peak. It was it was pretty much so what I'd hit a really dark space, probably around about 2018, was when it really got to me. I'd made some really bad business decisions and lost a lot of money. Was led down a path of trusting people that I thought would sort of join what we were trying to create for bigger gains for everybody. And it was like, everybody win together. Look, let's work together. We can really sort of grow this. Sadly, it never transpired to turn out that way. And found myself sort of sitting there with a lot of questions. And I think the problem is with your mind, and we'll probably go into this a little bit more in more detail as we go, is that your mind starts to convince you that you're a failure, that you've let everybody down. Why did you let these people come in and exploit the situation? How did you give them the money? Why were you so foolish to fall into that trap? And it certainly takes you to some very, very dark places. And I think suicidal ideation, it comes into your mind, when you're there in isolation at night and you're laying there and you've got all these troubles and issues. It really, really does take hold of you. And this is where, for me, being fully aware of that suffering, I've really, really sort of opened up my channel on this to go, look, how can I help other people? And that was 2018. And then where we hit some really, really hard periods over the last couple of years. And they weren't all in one go. But what happens is that you create even more issues for yourself, because you think that you're doing all these great things, but you're in fear. You're causing, creating lots of problems for yourself. You don't see it. And I think this is where that connection with self really, for me, I had to wake up and find somebody, and I became quite desperate. I was like, look, it's imposter syndrome, I think, because you're getting to this level, and then you're going, oh, I don't know how to do this, and I don't know how to do that, and I've never scaled a business of this size. I mean, it's huge. The journey academically, I was awful at school. The class clown, the joker. My grades were horrendous. So then, of course, self-doubt kicks in, and then you're given these bigger opportunities. You've got responsibility, and it's all reaching this real peak. And so then I met this guy online who offered this sort of coaching stroke 6 peak challenge, which was 24 hours, 6 mountains in Scotland, without sleep. And I was like, look, I don't even walk to the shop. Like, so let's give it a go. I'm up for it. We'll give it a go. I need to change something. Surely something's going to happen on this event. And it was unbelievable. It was so hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was something like 49.8 miles we walked in just over 24 hours. So
I remember the way you were walking when you finished. It looked painful.
Yeah, I was like a penguin, weren't
I? But it wasn't, because it was quite an emotional journey for you, wasn't it?
Oh, it was. I mean, I broke on that, so many times. I think that the first, so it was broken down into 3 phases. And the first phase, it's daylight, there's a little bit of rain, you're chatting away, and you're all going along, and
the adrenaline's up.
Meeting all the different groups, because you don't really know these people, so it's not like I did it with friends. I completely pushed myself out of my comfort zone and went all the way to Scotland and met a room full of people I'd never even met before. So of course, then you're getting to know each other. So those sort of first 8 hours, if you like, you're sort of flitting between the group, getting to know the characters, and you're naturally gravitating energetically towards people that you actually get on with. So the next phase is then it becomes it's daylight going into dusk, sort of early evening, sort of 8 o'clock, something like that. And of course, then you're all sort of you're going through it, but then you start to hit this this wall. You watch everybody drifting off at different phases. So I remember mine quite vividly, because I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And we just stopped for food as well. So I'd had all these sachets and tablets and rehydrated, and my legs just gave up, my knees and my ankle. And I was just like, I can't do this. So my mind's absolutely battering me, saying, you know, the rain's coming down, it's getting colder, you know, it's the temperatures are dropping. And then all of a sudden I go, right, do your breathing. Wim Hof, you know, I went to the Pyrenees and I'd learned these techniques, and something kicked in. And I just went, and one of the guides went, Matt, you look like you want to set the pace. And he sort of read the room, and I went, are you okay with that? And he went, just go, mate. And I was just off. I was like Forrest Gump. I was like, right, there we go. I've got a video, and there's me with these rambling sticks, and it's just like on the concrete, bang, bang, bang. But it became very rhythmic, and it inspired me to keep going. And I didn't even look back, but when I did, there was no one to be seen. I'd literally just gone. But of course, their concerns were he's going to absolutely bomb because he's got another
crash,
to go to the final leg. I completely underestimated that. But at that moment, the fear was, I just need to keep going. I can't let people down. I think it was something like nearly £3,500 for a charity I'd raised. You can only imagine the amount of people that have contributed to that. So it's all those faces are going through your mind, and your mind's unbelievably powerful. And I think this is where people really underestimate the power of the mind. And just that as an example, it's it gives a bit of an illustration there.
You did that for Ripple, wasn't it? That was a charity you did that for.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'd previously done some work with mine back in 2018. So I actually did a skydive, and I just didn't. I raised about £1,500 for them, I think, and I never received a thank you email, which was quite hurtful, really, because when you've gone and faced one of your fears, which was, I wasn't very keen on heights, and so I decided to jump out this plane down in the Salisbury way, and to be fair, it wasn't even that bad. So I think it did 16,000 feet. But the thing is, because your mind can't comprehend the distance,
yeah, sure,
so high up, it was actually the cold, believe it or not. Back to the old the ice exposure, I couldn't catch my breath because it was so cold. I think it was around about March or April time, and the air was the thing that I remember the most. And then when you got down, they pulled the parachute. Then, of course, you can then sort of look at the floor and go, oh shit, I'm actually quite high up now. And then the fear kicked in, and of course then you're focusing on landing. So but I reached out to Alice. I'd seen her on LinkedIn. Sadly, she had lost her brother Josh to basically something quite tragic, which was when they looked at his phone. Alice is in cybersecurity, and she'd taken a look at Josh's phone. And he'd been part of these groups, and people had actually encouraged him to take his own life, which is so hard hitting when you hear that and you watch. I sat with Alice and her dad over Port Solent, and we went for some lunch, and it was just like, wow, you can't believe that these things exist. But Alice has then taken that and turned that into something, in terms of her mission as a coping mechanism to say, I'm going to make a change. And Ripple now, which is an app that you can download on your computer, on phones, which stops, pops up with all these smart AI alternatives and distracts you from potentially taking your own life. So obviously, you don't see people, the people that you save. I guess it's like, so one of my friends, Phil, who got me involved in the Wim Hof, he was actually diagnosed with blood cancer, and 5 years on, he's actually cured. He has no cancer anymore, and he's done the breathing, he's done the cold water therapy. He's absolutely shifted. He's got a company called Tribal Breath in Cheltenham. Fantastic setup with him and his wife Kathy. And Phil was a real inspiration to me, because I was like, right, how can I get on this? And he opened up my mind to Wim Hof. And of course, Wim Hof in himself doesn't need any explaining, because he's an absolute legend in his own right. So for me, I was really entering this world of, talking to people like Alice, taking that inspiration from her, trying to run the business, but also knowing that I needed to do something for me. And you're spinning all these, and you know better than anyone, Luke. You met me at my highs and at my lows, during that sort of that journey back then. And yeah, it's hard because you need to be a certain person to deal with it. So what do? Do you walk away, or do you actually go, do you know what? There's only one person saving this. There's only one person fixing it, and it's me. And how am I going to do that? So I think that's really where the switch in my mind took place, and it didn't happen instantaneous after reaching peak. I had an issue in, when I was in the Maldives. I gave up drinking. Got round the pool, sun, met a load of people that we didn't know, and sort of got to know them. And then, of course, you get drunk, and then didn't even remember my evening meal, and woke up next day feeling really bad, and had some really, really crazy thoughts going through my mind. And at the time, I was reading Eckhart Tolle, and an audio book, and these thoughts were so powerful that I literally had to go and just listen to that book. And I sat on, my wife thought I was really hungover on the sun lounge, but I wasn't. I had my headphones on, and I literally sat there and listened to it 5 hours right the way through. And it was just like, it's the power of the mind is what it's called, by Eckhart Tolle. And it really gets you thinking about the ego and the way that it can trick you into thinking that the realities that you're creating in your mind, or the visualizations, are actually real. So therefore, the emotions that come from those ideations or those visualizations that you get, you start to worry about them as if they're actually going to happen. And this is where people relate to sitting in the present moment. You've got to sit, you've got to be in the present moment. Now, people are like, oh yeah, well, I'm off my phone. Oh, I'm watching TV. I'm in the present moment. But you're not. You're not really in the present moment. You're not actually feeling. You're not within yourself. And I think that's one of the big discoveries that I've found. And it's helping me immensely at the moment.
I think what's really interesting is at times you've brought up with me the impact your son has on your mental health in a positive way, as far as kind of leveling you out, and a couple of moments you've had in your life. How do you think having a family, a strong family network, actually can positively impact you?
So my son's sort of, obviously I have 2 daughters and a young son, and I have an elder daughter from a previous relationship up in Manchester. So four children in total. It used to be about George, but actually in the last 12 months since I did the Reach Your Peak challenge, my children have looked at me completely differently. They're looking at me as this inspiring figure. So I've got a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a soon to be 11-year-old next month. So George being the youngest, and what they've sort of picked up on is all this uncomfort that I've pushed myself through, and they've really picked, even my wife. My wife's become inspired by what I've done. So the whole family's really starting to wake up to this. We've just got a plunge pool actually. So I've been waiting for it for a number of months. Yeah, and so that it's been. Of course, children, they look at it and go, "Oh, what's that?" Like, so George is the most inquisitive, and he's like, "I want to. Can I have a go?" And it's like, it's taken us about 5 attempts to get him in. Because he gets in, but it's so cold. I mean, literally, it takes your breath away. And so he gets in, and then it's like, and he's fighting with his mind, and you can see. But this is the thing, children, when they start to transition into, I've been doing a lot of work on research on the way that the brain frequency changes as we develop and we get older. So you move into different phases of, from alpha, beta, theta, delta, all these kind of brain frequencies shift. So when you're a child, you visualize things a lot more. So they play on their own. They're drinking out the cup. They're eating the food. They're giving you the dinner on an empty plate, and you're looking at it to say, "Oh, right, okay." But they can actually visualize it. So this is but as adults, we lose that. And I think the key message is that if you can try to go back to your younger self, then You can be carefree. You can be happy. You don't take things seriously. You strip away a lot of these insecurities and fears about people, how they, because people being judgmental about you is a big thing. You know, where do your anxieties come from? I don't want to walk in that pub because people might laugh at what I'm wearing, you know, or I might meet someone in there that doesn't particularly like the way I look and might end up, you know, coming up and putting a glass in my face. Well, it's never going to happen. Very likely, very unlikely, you know. I mean, violence does take place. But my point is, again, your mind, again, is telling you all these things, and I think that's where working with my children, it's George when he plays football, he gets into his own mind when he settles and doing his breathing. So because he gets the first 10 minutes of a game, he's very much, it's all about fear or how am I going to play today.
Yeah.
When he settles down, he just plays naturally, and he connects with self, and you can just see it. You know, like my daughter with her exams, working with her on those. How can you do this without building it up in your mind? So, Ant Middleton came. I remember reading something about him that this young boy was struggling with his exams, and he said, just go through the question, read it. If you can answer it, answer it. If not, move on to the next one, assess it, see if you can answer that, and go through. And I said to my daughter, look, similar kind of thing. Go through the paper, all the ones that you think that you can answer. They're really easy. So you go and answer those. You know you're going to bag them. Then you go back to the beginning again, and then start again and go back to all the ones that you didn't answer, and then assess them really quickly in your mind. And then go. And then by the end of it, if you still got time, give the hard ones a go. And you're breaking it down into smaller problems. And I think this is the thing. It's things are so logical, yet we've become so lost as people. We overcomplicate things. We live in phones. I mean, handsets are, you know.
Oh yeah, I'm all about digital detoxes at the moment. But there's something you said there that it's kind of topical at the moment because it's back in the news, and it's the idea. I don't know what book it originates from, but this whole thing of only ever giving 85%, and the whole idea behind it, because everybody goes, oh, I give 110% all the time. It's not about dedication. It's not about dedication. It's about the fact that if we're focusing on a task or a challenge, if we try and give 100%, we are instantly like, oh, you get nervous and you get panicky and you get anxious. But if you're giving 85% of it, you've automatically given yourself a little bit more leeway. So you've relaxed yourself, your mind's calmed down a little bit, and you can find whatever task it is you can accomplish in a better manner. And it all comes back to kind of like the rugby and sport way of doing things, that the players are at their peak when they're relaxed and they're in the zone, if that makes sense. So, you know, but say a goal scorer's gone on a run of, you know, 10 games without a goal. He's now, oh, when am I going to get my next goal? And now he's overthinking everything. So this whole 85% rule thing, I'm kind of fascinated by, because I think I've kind of given my best work when I've just gone, okay, right, let's just calm everything down. You know, let's just focus on this task and this task only. But so what I wanted to kind of touch on there is there's something you also said about childlike way of looking at things, and I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing now, but it links into another book that I've read about how children, when we're children, we're taught that we can be what we want to be. Dream of being a fireman, an astronaut. It doesn't matter, because we want them to have imaginations. But at some point, you know, when school gets a bit more serious, and then we've got to think of a career. Oh, don't be silly, you can't be an astronaut. You know, don't be silly, you can't do that. Then you whether it's a parent or teachers or people around you, you are then being put inside a box, and then that box kind of takes away a little bit of our childlike exuberance and imagination, and just this, you know, the power of the mind again, of we can really be anything now, you know, within reason. I get that, but and I think that's something that's rarely kind of spoken about, because a lot of people that achieve amazing things, whether you're Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, a lot of it is because they've just gone, you know, I don't think I have a ceiling. I can do this. I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at, but there is no ceiling. Do you see what I mean?
It's called limiting beliefs. But so people will instill that in you. So, you know, from you know, a childhood upbringing, this is not me personally, but what I'm saying is, if you're being told, you know, by a teacher, by a parent, why are you saying that you're never going to be that? You're never going to be. That's instilling that in you. So there's actually it can vary. I've seen 7 years and I've seen 9 years between. But the first 7 to 9 years of your life, I'm going to stick with 7 because that's what I've seen more frequently than the 9, but I have seen 9 once. But let's just go with 7. First 7 years of your life while you're developing all of these awarenesses and traits that you're building yourself to become. So if you start to be told that, you know, you're never going to be this, you're rubbish at that, you know, why are you even thinking about flying to the moon? That's crazy. It's never going to happen. You know, you're never going to be an astronaut. All these sort of things. All of a sudden, subconsciously, you're storing that, and then you're building it up. And then what happens is then you build up these confidence issues. So you might go into an interview. Oh, I've got to go I'm going for this interview. I don't think I'm going to get it. Well, you're not going to get it because you're telling yourself you're not going to get it. And, you know, if you look at some of the most inspiring people that have always been successful, Muhammad Ali, Bruce Lee, all these kind of people, when you look at some of their you know, their phrases that they say, it's all about, Muhammad Ali is probably one of the biggest, isn't he? You know, he told everybody what he was going to do, and then he went and did it because he believed in it, and he worked hard on that belief, and he visualized him being where he is. Now, there's a lot of you know, there's a lot of people that say that they can visualize this and visualize. And I think people have gone to. The problem is in this world at the minute, Luke, is there's trends that develop very quickly on TikTok, Instagram, these kind of social media platforms, quick reels, quick info, quick digest, and it's exactly what they're for. And of course, then the younger generation seem to believe this because it's the world that they're entrenched in. It doesn't happen that quickly. There's a hell of a lot of work that you need to put in. But we all are. So there was when I went on the Wim Hof expedition in Poland, there was a guy from Denmark that I met, Bo, and he was just this lively character. And you know, we ended up. What I always remember him with fondness is when we used to stop climb. We climbed up Mount Snetska. And Mount Snetska was 1,400 meters. So we did this with no clothes. We literally had shorts on, boots.
Right. Yeah.
It was minus 20 degrees on the climb, and so you had two parts to this. It was called you had the steady eddy, which was protected by the fern trees. So you were sort of walking out, and at key points, so they tell you to sort of keep your arms underneath your armpits to keep your hands warm because they're the ones that get the coldest first, and at risk of frostbite and so forth. And then it's you do your breathing, so you deep breath and you try to remain focused. So this is all about, because your mind's going, what are you doing? This is crazy. You're semi-naked and walking up a mountain. It's snowing. There's snow everywhere. It's white. It's beautiful. It's idyllic, but this just isn't right. And then you get to the flat, and it's a big open area at the top of the mountain. And what it does is a bit of an optical illusion. So it's 1,400 meters this climb, and you go up in this great big group, and then there's to the left there's the yellow hotel, and you can see it. So you get there and you think, of course, your mind's going, oh, thank God for that. We're there. We're nearly there, because you've just had this past the steady eddy, and then all of a sudden you come out of those trees, and it literally is like being in a movie. The wind is literally battering you. And I think the wind chill registered around about minus 38 at one point. And you're literally, you know, when you're like walking through the Arctic, and you're all just in, please just get there. And then we all got there. I think even my nipple hair froze at one point. I think I managed to I was having my photograph done at the top. And I was like, look at it. And then you sort of go in and it's all warm, and then you descend back fully clothed. But I mean, people think you're nuts, but it's that can you come away from your mind? It's like sitting in the ice tub. Like, as I say to my kids, it's not about the cold water. It's about silencing the mind, because when you're focusing on your breath, you're not thinking of anything else. This is turn right down, and there's so much more that you can take from that, because this is, I think, when people actually do stop and think about this conversation and take anything from it, is when they sit in silence. How loud is that? On a scale of 1 to 10, how loud is your mind? What's it telling you? What's it feeding you with? Is it feeding you with positivity? I doubt it very much, unless you're just a very, very positive person. So the majority of people are being sunken by fears, especially in the world we live in at the moment. I mean, everything you look at is crisis. I don't watch mainstream media anymore because for me, it was just so negative. It's you just need to take each day, live in the present moment, be thankful that you've woken up and that you're breathing air and you're off to do what you need to do, and just deal with it, and then close the day off and go again the next day.
Yeah, and that brings us neatly on to voice. So there really is an alarming suicide rate within the telecoms industry. And I don't know if there's been any research as to why that is. But beginning of this year, where the year's gone, the pandemic has done this to me. You kind of mentioned this, and so can you tell us a bit about it, what the acronym VOICE stands for, and why it's so important in the telecoms industry at the moment?
Yeah, so it was actually last year. I mean, it's amazing how quickly it's gone. I was on my wedding anniversary with Kate, and saw that a gentleman had taken his own life. It wasn't obviously broadcast like that, but I could see that something had happened to him, and just for a couple of text messages found out that it was suicide. And it just hit me, and I knew he'd been suffering, because we'd spoken. And once I don't know, something came over me, and it's like, Matt, you need to do something about this. Like, think about, and I had my phone on me, and I started, look, it needs to be related to telecoms, something that we can relate to telecoms, but it also needs to be more than that. What else can we do where it's going to be quite punchy and stick? So VOICE stands for Value Our Industry, Connect Emotionally. And at that point in time, I was on my own emotional journey, and I think the more and more I've done the Wim Hof 3 pillars, the breathing, the cold water exposure, all the meditation, it's really opened me up to exploring this whole subject. And then I've worked with a couple of other people that are very much about trying to get you to realize that you have to strip away your ego. So your ego is this. So when people think ego, they think that it's this this geezer walking in. Oh, look at me! I've got this. I've got that. Look at me in my car, and and it isn't. Your ego it protects you. It's there to support you and stop you from being hurt. So you build it up over a period of time, and a lot of it is to do with suffering and traumatic events. But sadly, the voice and the ego can build bigger. It can become a lot louder. And so I think the total suicides, and all male, I haven't heard of any female suicides, thankfully. It was all male. Just recently as well, we lost a really, really good guy, business owner, from the outside looking in, highly successful, brilliant company, been around for a long time. And he was just training to do an ultra marathon, and sadly didn't see any other way out. And again, it's just so hard hitting. And the other guys that I was aware of, I mean, you listen to their individual stories, it just pure desperation. They felt that there was no way out of where they were. And I've been in that place before. You get to that place, but then when you're surrounded by so many people that love you and are aware of your suffering, and my wife is absolutely aware that if I used to go on one of these places where my head was was just not there, and the stress was getting too much, and the pressure was building. And it was around about the 6th of December. Well, it was. I know it was the 6th of December. 6th of December, 2022. I had an actual breakdown in the kitchen, and it was quite. When people say there's tipping points in life, me and Kate, it was the stresses of Christmas. We were struggling. The business was struggling with money and cash flow. Our personal balance had gone down because I'd put loans into the company to keep things going. And of course, you've got Christmas and the demands of Christmas, and children want. My kids being older, obviously, it was phones, it was laptops, it was very expensive stuff. And yet, I allowed that to get to me to a point where me and Kate were sitting over the kitchen table. I had no interest of going into the office that day. I remember sitting there, just sort of sitting in my box shorts and a t-shirt at the table, completely low, absolutely low. I didn't realise how low I was, but Kate was sort of going, "Are you this is." We were talking about it. It was heated. Let's call it that. We don't really argue, but it was heated, and it got to the point where it all became frosty. And she said, "Well, I'm going out to walk the dogs." And she got to the door, and she then realised that no. I can't take the dogs for a walk, something. And she came back and said, "Are you okay?" And I literally just went, "No." Bang, like completely broke. And it was, when people say like a mental breakdown, it's just an emotional breakdown. I just didn't know what to do. I literally, Luke, I had no idea. And of course, when you then hit that low, there was lots of crying, lots of tissues, and look, we'll get through this. We can do it. And we sat for a good hour just talking everything through. And I even said that, should I just give this up? Of course, being the caring person I am, I'm like, I can't let these people down. I've got staff. We're nearly at Christmas. We're suffering. I can't let these people go at Christmas. We were losing money. And then, of course, then the next part is, well, I can't let people go because it's the new year, new start. Thanks, Matt. So, of course, then your mind's playing with that. And look, but then you have to be honest to self. I could have stopped it all, but it wasn't about the money for me. We'd built up enough reserves over the 2 years prior to that where we'd become very successful very quickly. You know that better than anyone because you came in at a point where you saw us at our peak. But there were a lot of moving parts that caused me. It wasn't just telecoms. It was also Liz Truss bombing the economy. It was unable to get buy-to-let mortgages on my 2 rental properties. So I ended up having to sell both of those. There was a builder that took me for £40,000, said that he was doing the work while I was out the country. It just, everything. You could write a book on the last 12 months. It was horrendous. And it even got to, the sort of the tipping point early this year where there were people that I genuinely felt were true friends that deserted me in my hour of need. But that said, you've got to come through these periods, because I would say since that day, the 6th of December, sitting here now looking at where I am and how I feel, and you asked me at the beginning of this call, how are you? With genuine interest, because people ask you how you are, but do they really mean how are you? Or, oh, how are you? All right. Anyway, what I was going to say was, they don't really stop and think and talk and listen. So I always make a lot of time and effort to talk to people as much as I physically can on a personal level. Sometimes in the work environment, you're in a meeting, you've got to do what you've got to do to keep the business going. And you have to wear this hat of, you've got to get things done. And it's such a fine line. Do you know, obviously raising my head above the parapet, being a mental health ambassador as I profess on, on LinkedIn in my title, which I absolutely do, hand on heart. For me, I'll just keep raising awareness, and those people that want to listen and watch and follow my journey and take what they want from it they can do it, because hopefully they'll learn from anything that I'm sharing, because I think that's the key point here is awareness. I'm no expert in this, only from a personal perspective. I don't have any certification, academically. Like I say, there's no. I mind you saying that I did. Sean, the new guy I'm working with, he's certified in ADHD, and
Right. Okay.
he's told me I'm 100% ADHD. So I've always wanted letters after my name, so I finally got it.
Excellent.
So yeah, it's not official. I haven't got a certificate, but Sean's got ADHD and his son has, and he said, Matt, you've 100% got ADHD, mate. He said there is no doubt you've got ADHD. So I'm actually off to a reset in Ibiza with Sean.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, with I don't know whether many people. It depends who's listening and what their demographic is, but Brandon Block's going.
Right. Yeah.
The old house DJ. Yeah. So he, one of his stories was unbelievable. He did that much cocaine that I think he's on a 5-day bender. That his heart rate was something like 250 beats per minute. He should have been dead, So he's had a massive shift as well. And look, there's so many people out there that are either suffering or trapped and want to sort of. You're only going to go one or two ways. You either look in the mirror, as Ant Middleton's book, which many years ago I read, First Man In. There's a bit at the back of the book, and it tells you to basically look at that person in the mirror and have an honest conversation with them. And that was tough. I did that back in 2018. I've told a few people to do it. And again, it's very daunting because you're looking back at the person that you really don't want to be talking to. Because you're talking to self. And
Well, as a kind of a final question, then it's about voice. And so given everything that you said, what are the plans for voice? And how can somebody access some help through it?
Yeah, so this is it's something that I'm still working on. So I think voice really with the name, I think I love to talk as well, as you probably can tell from this podcast. I think it'd be good to just start to get it out there on a very, very, very basic level of allowing people to have their own space and comfort to listen, observe, and take that in. So the first part of this is we're doing. I'm doing a podcast with Zoe Hanson. I'm doing it tomorrow, actually, the first one.
So
that's going to be about myself and my journey, and we've sort of mapped that all out. Zoe's very, very good at this. She's self-declared as the podcast lady. So so hopefully I'm in good hands on that. It will be shared on. It's not going to be video. It's going to be it's literally going to be audio. We're going to share it on Spotify, so you'll be able to download it from there. And the idea is that we want to target. We actually drew up a character. So it was a working class man in his early 40s, likes going to the pub, likes dabbling in other things because it happens. Let's not say it doesn't, because it does. It's out there. Whether that's alcohol, drugs, whatever. There's addictions out there which cause rise to a lot of these issues. And we believe this person's got a family or might not have a family, is into football, and very much lad kind of target audience. And it's about them with their headphones on, taking a walk, sitting in the car, in their van, listening to the podcast, and hopefully taking some inspiration about actually taking self-control and starting the small steps on a journey. And once that, there's going to be six episodes on that series. So then the other areas I'm looking at trying to build up is trying to target, looking at ways to educate people around emotional intelligence, because I think a lot of the leadership, self-taught leadership skills that I've taken from a lot of these courses is you need to show that that empathy towards your team, good and bad. They need to know that you've been there and you've been where they've been. I mean, I posted yesterday about the the Tottenham manager, Ange.
I saw that. Yeah.
Well, you know, for me, and Pep Guardiola's another one. You know, you look at these people and people go, well, yeah, they're great tacticians. There's nothing about that. That's great. Yeah, you do need that. That's that structure you need. But also it's about people connection. It's about trusting those people. It's about giving them that you know that belief that you believe in them and they can believe in themselves. And when they've got that self-belief, look at what happens. Haaland and you know Messi and all the great players, Ronaldo, all these people, they believe in self. You know, the higher self. When they score their goals, they have faith in themselves. They believe in themselves, and that's why they are at that level. And that, I mean, that's a serious journey to go on. It really is. But you've got to start somewhere.
I think that's where, from the outside perspective, where I always looked at voice, what it is and what it becomes, what it starts with, is a very raw and honest journey from yourself, because you know, it's very in a way comforting, whether you're somebody in the telecoms industry or in a different industry, but you're hearing somebody else go through things that you are going through, or you've gone through part of it, and it just sounds like it resonates. It doesn't make you feel like you're on your own as much. So the way I always kind of thought, you know, voice, whether it's a communication platform such as a regular podcast, or it was seminars within large businesses talking about, you know, self-awareness, mental health, or anything like that, that's kind of the direction that I saw it was going in. And it's kind of got limitless potential really as well, because and it all starts from a very raw and honest story, like I said before. So thank you so much, Matt, for coming on here and agreeing to share some of it with us. I really do appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have you back on maybe in a year's time to see how voice has progressed.
Yeah, no, like you say, running a company. If voice was just my my sole purpose each day, and I didn't have this great big telecoms juggernaut or tanker, cruise tanker that I'm trying to, you know, be the captain of at the moment and the leader of. It's it's weekends and evenings, and I really do. And I've got a lot of support from a lot of people in the industry who've thrown their hat in the ring. And it really is just trying to prioritize and find the time. And being self-diagnosed with, recently diagnosed with ADHD from Sean, you can probably see why I'm spinning all over the place and doing all these different things. But this keeps me centered, and and it's never far away from my thoughts at the end of a day or at a weekend, where I can, you know, hopefully put a post out or do a bit more work on getting this going. But my ultimate aim is to do this longer term, and look, in a year's time you can hold me to task if I haven't progressed anymore, and we have another meeting, then you can hold me accountable.
I will do. Always a pleasure, Matt, to chat with you outside of podcasts and inside of podcasts as well. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been absolutely fascinating listening to you.
No problem at all, Luke. Thank you very much. All the best.